Hey there, bibliophiles and those raising bibliophiles. Without ratings and warning labels, knowing which books are appropriate for your children to read is like navigating wild terrain without a map and a compass. I don't know about you, but I have been burned more than once handing my child a book that I thought was clean and appropriate for them to read. I'm a fellow mom, educator, reading specialist, and literary enthusiast trying to find great books for my children and yours to read. So if you're looking for real reviews from a mom with a biblical worldview, then welcome and enjoy this week's book review. So this week's book review is The Explorer by Katherine Rundell. And this is a middle grade adventure story involving 4 children who crash land in the Amazon jungle. Fred, Con, Lila, and Max are on a small plane traveling across Brazil in a small airplane when their pilot dies and they crash land in the Amazon. Surviving the crash is one thing, but now they must survive the jungle to make it back to safety and civilization. So before I go much further, I'm going to just read a little bit of the opening of the story for you, just to give you an idea of the writing style. The first chapter is called Flight, so there's no chapter numbers in this book. They each just have a title. Like a man-made magic wish, the airplane began to rise. The boy sitting in the cockpit gripped his seat and held his breath as the plane roared and climbed into the arms of the sky. Fred's jaw was set with concentration, and his fingers followed the movements of the pilot beside him. Fuel gauge, throttle, joystick. The airplane vibrated as it flew faster, following the swerve of the Amazon River below them. Fred could see the reflection of the 6-seater plane, a spot of black on the vast sweep of blue as it sped toward Manaus, the city on the water. He brushed his hair out of his eyes and pressed his forehead against the window. Behind Fred sat a girl and her little brother. They had the same slanted eyebrows and the same brown skin, the same long eyelashes. The girl had been shy, hugging her parents until the last possible moment at the airfield. Now she was staring down at the water, singing under her breath. Her brother was trying to eat his seatbelt. In the next row, on her own, sat a pale girl with blonde hair down to her waist. Her blouse had a neck ruffle that came up to her chin, and she kept tugging it down and grimacing. She was determinedly not looking out the window. The airfield they had just left had been dusty and almost deserted, just a strip of tarmac under the ferocious Brazilian sun. Fred's cousin had insisted that he wear his school uniform, and now inside the hot, airless cabin, Fred felt like he was being gently cooked inside his own skin. The engine gave a whine and the pilot frowned and tapped the joystick. He was old and soldierly, with brisk nostril hair and a gray waxed mustache that seemed to reject the usual laws of gravity. He touched the throttle and the plane soared upward higher into the clouds. It was almost dark when Fred began to worry. The pilot began to belch, first quietly, then violently, and repeatedly. His hand gave a sudden jerk and the plane dipped drunkenly to the left. Someone screamed behind Fred. The plane lurched away from the river and over the canopy. Fred stared at the man. He was turning the same shade of gray as his mustache. "Are you all right, sir?" he asked. The pilot grunted, gasped, and wound back the throttle, slowing the engine. He gave a cough that sounded like a choke. "Is there anything I can do?" asked Fred. Fighting for breath, the pilot shook his head. He reached over to the control panel and cut the engine. The roar ceased. The nose of the plane dipped downward. The trees rose up. "What's happening?" asked the blonde girl sharply. "What is he doing? Make him stop." The little boy in the back began to shriek. The pilot grasped Fred's wrist hard for a single moment, then his head slumped against the dashboard, and the sky, which had seconds before seemed reliable, gave way. And so that's a little bit of the opening. That is the first chapter, so it's definitely going to pull readers in. Each character in the story has a bit of their own background and contribution to the narrative. Fred and Con most notably. Originally from England, Fred lives with his father, who's constantly busy with work, more so since the passing of Fred's mother. Fred longs for adventure, exploration, and validation from his father. Con, also from England, has lived her life sort of passed around from family to family, and she currently lives with her great aunt. Con's transformation from more of a socialite to adventurer is most profound. Lila and Max are siblings, originally from Portugal. Their parents are scientists. Max is only 5 years old, and Lila is mostly concerned with keeping Max alive at any cost necessary. Early on, the children face many challenges to survive, and in that endeavor, they come across a shelter and other odd things that lets them know that they are not the first to cross these parts. Fred has read about many past explorers and their expeditions, so his mind sort of runs wild with all the possibilities that maybe one of these people that have come before them was one of these long lost explorers. Realizing ultimately that they cannot stay nor survive long in the jungle, the children make a raft to take down the Amazon River with their key destination of Manaus, Brazil. Along their journey, they come across a secluded hidden city, but quickly they find that they are not alone. The oddities that they saw earlier are the result of the explorer who is standing before them. They are first met with aggression and hostility, but the explorer quickly softens, teaching them survival skills, and eventually gives them the opportunity to escape the jungle and return to Manaus in order to save Max's life. So there are a lot of good quotes in the story as Fred is sort of seeking adventure. He's definitely probably more of the main character. There's all four of them, but him more so does the novel follow. The explorer, you never actually learn his name. He just goes by the explorer the entire time in the story. Like I said, he does sort of meet them a little bit with aggression, but then he softens and he begins to care for them and does what he can. I would encourage you to go to my website at holdingsteadfastreaders.com. You're going to get some more details about little things that are worth mentioning, some of the quotes that I think are great. Readers, as you can tell from the opening, they're going to absolutely love the twists and turns of this adventure that the characters are going to face as they go from one challenge to another. Their challenges are not just physical, but they're also mental. Parents will be happy to know that there is minimal profanity. So I do have a few mentions of what does appear at holdingsteadfastreaders.com on my written review. So definitely go and check that out. Ultimately, though, you have great themes about adventure, good risk taking, what is an appropriate risk, what is not, and then ultimately about friendship as these four characters, obviously through this traumatic experience, develop a deep friendship. So that is The Explorer by Katherine Rundell. Hopefully that information is helpful to you as a parent trying to figure out what is and is not appropriate for your children to read and what you may or may not want to add to their reading list. And hopefully you will join me next week for another book review.